Salutations everyone, this is Razor giving you guys a breakdown on the 2017 season for Smash 4. I decided instead of going over 2GG Genesis Saga, we're going to take a retrospective of the 2016 season, the PGR rankings that just came out, that will go over the top 10 players ranked in the world, as well as the metagame and where that will be progressing for 2016, what to focus on, and what the storylines are. So let's get right into the PGR rankings for 2017, where undoubtedly your number one ranked player in the world is Zero. To no one's surprise, went absolutely undefeated all the way through 2014 and almost all the way through 2015, where he took second place at MLG World Finals to Nairo and was finally dethroned, but then just came back to winning all the way through the beginning of 2016, where he lost in grand finals at Gommel. And then he gets second at Mexico Saga, second at Wednesday Night Fights, second at Smash and Splash. So all of a sudden, he's not automatically number one every single time. But, you know, even though he lost 4 tournaments in a row, he was second place every single time. And then he wins Low Tier City 4. And then CEO happens. You know, everyone's revving up for Evo. CEO also a super major, a lot on the line, and he takes 9th place, which is by far his lowest placing, the only time at that point, you know, all the way halfway through 2016, he's been in grand finals in every single tournament since the game launched until then. So that was a bit of a shakeup for a lot of people, where we saw Anti take that over Zenodo. And then at What the Fox 2, he gets 3rd. And then at Evo, he gets 3rd. Kamemushi and Ally duking it out in grand finals with Zero outside looking in. So out all of these tournaments where he's always in grand finals, winning all but, 5 of them. Then he gets 4 tournaments in a row where he's not in grand finals. 9th at CEO, 3rd at What the Fox 2, 3rd at Evo, and 13th at Super Smash Con. And then he starts winning again. Back to the Zero that we know. He wins Endgame. He wins Shine. 4th at Collision, 14. Then he wins Abadango Saga, Big House 6, K-Tar 19, UGC Smash Open, Smash City LA. And then the 2GG Zero Saga. Here it is. The curse is finally going to be broken. Someone's going to win their own saga. And he gets 4th. But then Genesis Saga rolls around and he wins that. So we know he is absolutely, without a doubt, the top player in the world. He's got more first place finishes than anybody else almost has, top 5 finishes. It's ridiculously how consistent this man is. Straight rocking with the Diddy since the Sheik nerf. We've seen his Sheik come out in tournament, I want to say twice, and never, I believe, in top 8. So, he's a Diddy, he's the Diddy, one of the top characters in the game, and he's absolutely the number one gamer in the world. So, the number one headline, obviously for 2017, is going to be because of Zero's dominance through 2014, 2015, and 2016. Is he going to stay dominant? Is he going to continue this dominance? Or is he going to be contested by more players like Larry and Leo, Dabuz, Nairo, Anti, yada, yada, yada? That is the number one most intriguing question. Some people want to see it get more competitive, and it's definitely gone down that direction since his loss at MLG, but most especially since after getting 4 straight second place fishes, starting with Gommel, ending with Smash and Splash, then 9th at CEO, and 3rd at Evo. It got a lot more interesting, but he's absolutely the most consistent player, always going through winners with some small exceptions here and there, but nobody is as good as this guy in this game at any point in time. And then number 2 for your PGR rankings is Ally. Once again, no surprise, just going based solely off results here. Ally is, I think, solid. It may be a shaky foundation, but absolutely your number 2 player in the world based off of the wins that he has, including a positive win matchup versus Zero, the number 1 player in the world. He got 9th at Genesis 3. Then he really puts himself on the map at Gommel 2016, where he takes 1st place. That was a huge win for him. That's what established him as a threat and a top 5, top 3 player in the world. And then 2nd at Momocon, 1st at Smash and Splash. But then at CEO, he's 49th. So you're going to see a lot with him and Nairo and Anti, some inconsistencies. Some of these best players in the world, this isn't Melee where we have, gods that will always be in top 8, when maybe somebody is on loser side, or maybe somebody drops a game or two in pools. This isn't the case here in Smash 4. A lot of these top players will have losses in pools, and we've even seen Zero, Mr. quote-unquote untouchable in some cases, have some losses in pools as well. So a 49th place at CEO, but then at EVO, he takes first place over Kamemushi and Zero and everybody in the biggest Smash 4 tournament of all time on the biggest stage. And at Super Smash Con, he takes 5th place, Endgame. He gets a 3rd place, Abadango Saga. 4th place, Big House 6, 25th. Once again, he dropped that one quite early as well. I believe that's the one where he had to drop out because he was sick. I could be wrong. I don't remember exactly what tournament that was, but I think that was Big House 6. Canada Cup, trying to take it home for his Canadian people, but gets 2nd to Leo. And at UGC, he gets 9th. At Zero Saga, 5th. So with the results that he has, he is absolutely, I think, unquestionably number 2 for now. He has had some of those inconsistencies, 25th at Big House, 49th at CEO, but the biggest tournament of all time, he won 5th at SmashCon, 5th at Zero Saga, 9th at UGC, and the only one with a positive record against Zero, he's your number 2 guy. And then at 3rd place, we have Nairo. At CEO, 17th, EVO, 13th. He won Super Smash Con, Big House, 7th, UGC, 4th place, and at 2GG Zero Saga, 5th place. So when it came to the 2015 season, it was almost unquestionably Zero, Nairo, Dabuz. That was almost always your top 3. Those were always going to be, the people that people would put money on, to win. Or at least, in their mind would put money on to win. And Nairo has shown some inconsistencies, but we know he's the top Zero suit in the world, and we've also seen what he can do with Lucina and a lot of Bowser. So I think what we saw coming out of Nairo and what I'll be getting into later is the counter picks coming into play to really push the meta here. Nairo understands that, and he's been able to use that Bowser to win some of those matchups where his Zero suit is not being able to get it done, as well as some of the Lucina as well. So Nairo, your 3rd place here on the PGR, solely based off of some solid results, including a major win at SmashCon. And then in 4th, we have Dabuz. 3rd place at CEO, 7th at EVO, 2nd at Super Smash Con, 5th at the Big House, and 9th at 2GG Zero Saga. Now, Dabuz had a lot of hype toward the end of the 2015 season and early 2016, but he kind of fell off. He has the results, in those 5 super majors out there, he had a top 10 finish in every single one. A lot of people try not to give him credit because his Rosalina and Luma is the way that it is, but people just don't like that character, so they'll associate that dislike with his play, even though we've seen a lot of hype coming out this guy, especially when we saw him with that CEO run. That was some really crazy shit that he was pulling off there. Obviously, the best Rosalina and Luma in the world has the results to back it up. He finally got his win over Zero this year as well, and is for the most part pretty consistent. Isn't going to lose in pools as often as say Nairo will, but when it comes to getting to grand finals, that is for the most part quite a hurdle for him to beat Ally or Nairo and or Zero, and of course all the other people in the top 10 at once in one tournament to make it that far. And then in 5th, we have Lurr, one of the hypest players in the world with that super fast Fox, 7th at CEO, 7th at EVO, 17th at Big House, 7th at UGC, and 2nd at 2GG Zero Saga. He got a couple of wins over Zero, most notably at 2GG Mexico, where he won that in a super hype grand finals set. Larry, also a player who has picked up a number of secondaries out there. We know that he's had the Donkey Kong. We saw that a lot more in the 2015 going into 2016 season, but he's absolutely refined the Fox a lot more, and we've seen some great things coming out of him. He's somebody that some people might have him, under the radar because he doesn't have, as many grand finals appearances as Dabuz or Nairo or Ally or Zero, but he's always a threat to win every single tournament he's at because he's beaten absolutely everybody, and in every tournament he's shown he can do it again. And then in 6th place, we have Void, the absolute definition of consistency. Some people would want to attribute that to Dabuz, but I definitely think it's Void here. With just a solid neutral game, going solo with Sheik, 9th at CEO, 4th at EVO, 4th at Super Smash Con, 5th at Big House, 5th at UGC, and 3rd at 2GG Zero Saga. The only buddy out of anyone in the top 6 thus far who's been in all 4 of those tournaments that had a top 9 finish in absolutely every single one of them. He's super consistent. He's one of the few here in the top 10 who has not gone over that hurdle of beating Zero. That's the one player that he hasn't beaten yet. So that's why we haven't seen him take a major, because, he's always had to deal with Zero or hasn't, been able to beat somebody in some of those close sets. Him and Larry Lurr, they had, I think it was 43 sets throughout all of 2016, and he lost that 22-21. So he's super consistent, and we see him a lot in top 5s, but sometimes is not able to crack the top 3 and doesn't have a lot of grand finals appearances. But he's beaten everybody with the exception of Zero. A lot of people have a lot of hype on Leo right now, where Void has won 2 out of the last sets over Leo in the past 2 tournaments that we've had, and he can do a lot with that Sheik. As of course somebody that a lot of people find under the radar, he has an understated tone to his play style and doesn't show his emotions a lot. But the dude, he can be flashy. We've seen all the Sheik combos that he can pull off. With Sheik, absolutely viable as a solo main to take all these tournaments. But he hasn't able to do that yet. But I think he's the #1 candidate to be primed to beat all the other top 10 players in the world at a major and take it for the first time. And in 7th place, we have Abadango. He took Pound 2016, the first person to win a major that wasn't Zero or Nairo or Ally, and it was with a brand new character that nobody had seen in a grand finals on a major before, with that Mewtwo, after having a lot of success with the Pac-Man and the Meta Knight in the past, but it was really Mewtwo that put him over the limit to solidify himself unquestionably as a top 10 player. 4th at CEO, 5th at EVO, 7th at Super Smash Con, 9th at Big House, 2nd at UGC, and 9th at 2GG Zero Saga. Also quite consistent. He has a couple of other characters that we've seen him mess around with, but when he does well, it's always going to be with the Mewtwo. He's going to be a threat to win every single tournament that he's in. Abadango, of course, like with Void, the only 2 players in this top 10 who have not taken a set off of Zero in tournament. So that is a hurdle that we're going to have to see him come over to win one of these majors, but we know he's absolutely capable going at it with such a light character, such a glass cannon with Mewtwo. He's one of the most exciting players to see in the world, no matter, he has a lot of wins and really good places in Umeburas over in Japan. So he does travel a lot to the West, but also, as a top player in Japan, he gets a lot of great placings there that cannot be discredited, because he's unquestionably one of the best players in the world. He's won a major. There's very few people that can say that they have, because of Zero's won almost all of them. Nairo's won, Leo's won, Abadango's won, Larry's won, Anti's won, and that's about it. And Abadango deserves to be on that list and is a threat to absolutely everybody. And then we have the hot topic of discussion, MK Leo, sitting here on 8th place here on the PGR. In the X Factor rankings, he is #3 behind Zero and Ally, just based off of recent results, because he really hasn't had much results to speak of, because he's super young. He just turned 16 today, and he's had, visa issues similar to what we've seen Leffen have in Melee. So he didn't have a lot of results outside of Mexico, but there was a lot of people in Mexico, including himself, having a lot of big talks saying that he's top 5, most definitely, definitely top 5, probably top 3 in the world. And then going into the end of the year, a lot of people were saying, he's number 2, or he's the best player in the world, or at least competitive for that. And he really put himself on the map with Smash Factor 5 when he took first place in that. And then at Canada Cup, he made everybody notice with the first place finish there, gets third place in KTAR 14. And then at UGC, we finally see him at a tournament with, all the great players in attendance. And then he gets 13th. A little underwhelming for some. He's still quite young. He's traveling. Maybe nerves had part of it, but there's a lot of really amazing players out there that can definitely take it to him. But then at 2GG Zero Saga, he's the one who upsets everybody and takes first place with all the hype going into it, with the Marth after having so much success with the Meta Knight that he used to win Smash Factor 5 and get most of the attention earlier on in the year. At the end of the year, it was Marth. He still has the Cloud, which we saw him take Komokiri out in a Ditto. But then at Genesis Saga, he places 5th, going against Tweak in the Cloud Ditto, and gets rid of that option real quick because Tweak took it to him. But he's still one of the best Cloud players in the world, and he also, of course, still has that Meta Knight, I'm sure, if he wants to pull it out, as we see Abadango do quite often, especially against Dabuz, where that's a great counter pick against Rosalina. So a lot of people see him as number 2, possibly number 1 in the world, but with the few placings that he does have, he is ranked number 8 with just a 13th place at UGC and first at 2GG. But at 2GG Saga, he beat everybody else, including Zero, in a heck of a grand finals set. So he's the one who has all the hype, all the momentum, and all of the hope going into 2017 to either challenge Zero as the number 1 player in the world, or fill a similar role that we see Ally or Anti or Abadango or Nairo, where, yeah, he can win any tournament that he's in, but, maybe he also isn't in top 8 every single time. He most recently lost to Darkshad, probably like the 3rd ranked Ryu player out there, and I think we see a little bit more Ryu love here in 2017. But that's the 5th place finish after beating everybody at 2GG Zero Saga. So MKLeo is definitely going to have the biggest focus on him going into this season. I'm sure we'll see him at more tournaments. Maybe there'll be other visa issues and restrictions, because he's still just a child. He turned 16 the day this video is coming out, so there will be some limitations, but no question, one of the best players in the world. Even if he just played at 2GG Zero Saga, that's enough results to prove he's a top 10 player. And quite possibly more than that, and hopefully 2017 will give us the answer to that. Then at 9th place, we have Anti. Mr. Hype Man, winning CEO, 2nd place at Big House, 7th at Zero Saga, but also a little bit of inconsistencies, losing in pools and a lot, but also doesn't travel a ton. He gave Smash 4 more of a focus on 2016, after in 2015, not putting as much dedication into it, focusing on a lot of fighting games, including Street Fighter, but I think it's quite obvious that he is one of the best, top 10 Smash 4 players in the world. So in 2016, he put a bigger focus on that, and I hope to see an even greater focus in 2017 and see more Anti in more tournaments, and I think that'll give him more consistent and dominant placings, as opposed to a 13th place at Super Smash Con and 13th place at UGC, which is nothing to sneeze at, but we know that he is capable of more, especially with his 33rd place at EVO after taking CEO with that win over Zero and then taking out Zenodo in Grand Finals. And then at 10th place, rounding out your PGR rankings, is Mr. R. Your other Sheik player in the world. I think Void has separated himself as the number 1 Sheik player, but Mr. R, not to be discounted. He finally got a win over Zero this year. 5th at CEO, 17th at EVO, 3rd at Super Smash Con, 4th at the Big House, 9th at UGC, and 17th at Zero Saga. So he was a consistent player that we would always see in top 5, but not being able to crack Grand Finals. and he kind of fell off as the year went on. Void kind of took over as your main Sheik player. They definitely have different sort of play styles in both onstage and the offstage game, but Mr. R has a lot of results, has wins against almost everybody else, your top 30 players in the world. He's beaten pretty much all of them, so we know what he's capable of, but is on the most of the time on the outside looking in, and isn't one of the players that most of us would think as, cracking a grand finals or even a winners or a losers finals because of the other people that are on this list. But he's always going to be on there because that's just how good Mr. R is and how good he's been for such a long time in Smash 4, where he's one of the greatest players in the world. So those are the PGR top 10 rankings for the 2017 season. Like I said, the big stories are Zero's dominance. Can Leo challenge that number 1 spot or get that number 2 spot from Ally? Can Ally make all of those victories over Zero count for more, be more consistent, and make it into top 8 on winner's side most of the time? Are we going to see Nairo and Anti and Abadango with those counter picks really dictate to the metagame? Because that's what I think. That's where the meta is at this point. Obviously, Diddy is one of the best, if not the best, I would argue the best character in the game, and we have the best player playing him. But there's just so much variance when you take a look at the top 10. Last year, Ally cemented himself as number 2, jumping over Nairo and Dabuz and Larry and Anti. But Komori Kiri is not one to be discounted. Probably the best Sonic in the world, and also one of the best Clouds. Salem and all the other Bayonetta players, I think, are always going to be a threat. We've seen Salem take a lot of huge wins over everybody, including Zero. And I think him and Captain Zack and Pink Fresh and Saj are going to be, those hidden Bayonetta bosses in pools that are going to be taking people out. And, when we do see Renai and Kameme come in there, they're absolutely going to be threats in top 8. We're going to see a lot more coming out of Marth players, a lot more people motivated to go further with their Marth or even pick up the Marth, solely based off of what Leo's been able to do. But not just Leo, but Mr. E. We saw him, one of the earlier players to take out Zero in pools, and has beaten him a couple times now. And Pug West showing some tech with Marth as well. So there's talk a lot of other people picking up Marth, maybe taking place of that Pocket Cloud that so many people like Anti and Como and Mr. R and Leo have. But then you also have your Cloud mains that are definitely going to be a struggle for a lot of people to go up against. Tweak and Mewtwo King and Ned even. All those people have the opportunity to take out the vast majority of these other players. Mewtwo King was the first person to 3-0 Zero in a tournament, and that was absolutely crazy to see a Cloud beat a Diddy that dominantly. But of course, Mewtwo King is going to have his attention split between Smash 4 and Melee, with a greater focus, with Melee always trumping, because that's the game that he is better at and is always going to be in top 5, top 8s. So there's a lot of questions on some people. How much are they going to travel? Notably Anti and Leo, Kameme, Komori Kiri, Mewtwo King, if he's going to be in Smash 4 on all these tournaments, or travel to Smash 4 only tournaments more often, or if he's going to pick up another character. I think the metagame in 2017 will be dictated on counter picks more than anything else. And I think we saw a lot of this toward the end of the year, what Nairo was able to do with Bowser, and what he was able to do to Tweak and so many other players, where his Zero Suit's getting bodied, picks up the Bowser, and just grabs for the win. And we've also seen, Leo with the Meta Knight, Abadango with the Meta Knight, Dabuz using a lot more Olimar this year when his Rosalina isn't doing it. It'll be interesting to see if Larry picks up a third character, especially since we haven't seen a lot of DK recently, even though his Fox is his best character and has, positive matchups almost all the way across the board. But your boy Anti, the dude with 50 mains, mostly doing it with Mario, but has one of the best Clouds. He has a Zero Suit, and I'm sure he has a Charizard, and he probably has 30 other characters that are way better than any of us could ever imagine. And then there are also wild cards out there, like Renai, easily the best villager, so not people know that matchup. We've seen what Esam has been able to do a lot recently after having almost, no results in 2016 and late 2015. He came to a strong end in the 2016 season there. So I see Esam stepping up his game and moving his way up the ranks. There's also the question of Hyuga and his Toon Link and other Diddy mains like Zenodo or Tyrant, which is mostly a Meta Knight player, but he also has a Diddy. And then we've seen some other people make some surprising runs either through winners or losers. Neotono, another great Diddy main. And then we've seen Rich Brown and his Mewtwo be a little bit more consistent at the end. Samsora, he's kind of had an up and down year, ending on an up note. And then, like I mentioned before, a ton of Ryu players with a lot of tech that a lot of people may not be ready for, like Locus and Trella. And then we also have False and Darkshad, who also have Ryus that can make a lot of upsets. Smash 4 has so many more upsets than we saw in Brawl or Melee or PM because of the roster is so much more balanced. And I think that's why counter picks are going to become into much more of a play this year after rearing their head as such a dominant force to be reckoned with last year. Now, granted, the vast majority of your top 30 players in the world are going to be solo mains, with only the exceptions of, Leo and Como, Mr. R, who has a Cloud as well, and a Bayonetta, and is also starting to bring back a Marth. So, once again, I think the metagame will be dictated with the counter picks when it comes to who's going to be shuffling in and out of top 8, because we've seen some of these top 5 players, they don't make it out of pools, or sometimes they don't make it into top 8. Other players, they make surprise runs, like Samsora, or, Kameme coming out of almost nowhere to most American audiences to what he did in EVO, or Zenodo at CEO, and, Earth is, the best player in the world and gets top 8 in every single tournament he's in, whether it's Japan or America. But we only see him as a ranked 21 in the world, so some people may be slipping on him. Other Mewtwo players like Wadi. So there's a lot of storylines going out there, but I think the counterpick game is going to be the biggest focus for the 2017 season. So it's going to be interesting to see who starts picking up or refining their counterpick characters. And when it comes to, the big guns, Zero, Ally, Leo, Nairo, Abadango, Dabuz, Larry, Anti, Como, Mr. R, Void, Salem, those players out there is in one day who is going to be the best at their best. And that's always going to be fun to see.